Okay, now that we're complete with the submarine tail, we're gonna move on to the body. Okay, now if you cannot see or confused like which part is finished or which part is not finished, then you can easily click this checker pattern. Okay, and you can turn off the display because right now it's kind of like confusing. And whatever you see in the viewport that has a checker pattern, that means that portion is already being done. Okay, so it has a UV shell in this UV editor. Okay, now for the body, right, because the shape is again cylindrical, we're going to use the cylindrical mapping for it. Okay, so I'm just going to select anyhow like this, right? And because some of this portion is already done, we can easily deselect by clicking Control and left mouse button. Okay, so what it does is it will deselect whatever's being currently selected. So I'm actually like deselecting because I don't want to reproject that portion, and I don't want to reproject this portion because it already has a UV shell for it. Now for this particular one, unfortunately we have to do it manually because that UV shell is not being done yet. So I'm gonna again Control and left click and try my best to deselect that upper region for it. Okay, so again, before I project, I'm gonna make sure like I select the proper faces, which I think I did already. And again, we're going to use the cylindrical mapping for it. Okay, go to UV and then cylindrical mapping. And again, as mentioned before, whenever you do cylindrical mapping, it's always be vertical, but the submarine is horizontal, so you have to rotate to the correct axis. Again, because I know that the axis is going to be x-axis, so I'm going to type 90 and I'm going to press enter, and you watch how the cage is actually turned into the correct axis. And again, if you look at the shape, it's been cut in the bad way, so like goes like that, and there is this it goes indentation and so on. Okay, so we need to turn this cage into a better cutting. Okay, so I want to press 5, so it's much, maybe press 4, so it's much easier to see. So the idea is that we try to continue this this thick line that we had before, so this border. Okay, so it goes like this. So I want to keep rotating, right, and I keep rotating. Right, you see, so you notice how there is this border, right? So I'm turning off the checker and I'm turning, right, using one of the axes. Okay, so this line again, this white border indicate like where the cuttings are supposed to be. Okay, so I'm trying to align with the previous portion, which is the tail. So I keep rotating and I keep rotating and I get something like this. Okay, so if you have this little notch or whatever, just go ahead and rotate again until everything is aligned properly. Okay, just a little notch and I get something like this. Okay, so this is the body and this is the tail. And again, I kind of try my best to put this together, which then I can merge the body and the tail together. Okay, so if I double click all that, I can actually stitch them together. Okay, now maybe you're probably gonna ask like, can we do this in one go? Well, yes, okay, because these both shapes actually like one giant cylinder. Okay, so if you know what you're doing, you can actually like select this entire body and the tail together, and then you can just do one mapping. Okay, so whatever easier for you, then you can do it. Okay, so the reason why I'm doing it twice is just for demonstration purposes. Okay, because having doing the body and the tail at the same time may confuse people, so I tend to break the body and the tail separately, then we connect them together. Okay, but of course you can do this in one go, okay, if you know what you're doing, because the shape is actually a cylinder. Okay, so I'm gonna do it again, and whoops, I'm going to cylindrical mapping, make sure it's horizontal. I'm trying my best to a bit taller and put the seam at the bottom, right? Because you don't want the seam to be visible at the top. You want to hide the cutting, which will make more sense when you do the texture later. Okay, so make sure everything is nice and neat. Okay, probably something like that. Okay, now I'm left with the upper or the control room here. Okay, and again, if you observe the shape of this control room, is pretty much it's like cylinder. Okay, and again, if it's a cylinder, then you can use the cylindrical mapping. Okay, so this cylindrical mapping is pretty useful, right? You can actually apply to objects that have like cylinder nature, things like human arms and human leg, and also things like water bottle. Okay, you can use that mapping. Now, one thing that I want to show you here is that I'm going to use this shortcut. Okay, so whenever you use this shortcut, which is Shift and the greater sign, or Shift and lesser sign, you can actually grow and shrink selection while you're in the face mode. Okay, so let's say I'm going to select this one. Okay, so if I press Shift and the greater sign, I can make this bigger. Okay, so if I want to make the selection smaller, I can press the other one. Okay, Shift and the lesser sign. So this is Shift and greater sign, and this is Shift and lesser sign. Okay, to shrink the selection. So maybe I'm going to select this loop, right? Then I can grow selection. Okay, so this is the border, right? They indicate like this portion is not done, but this one is done. So I'm trying to just select the control room. For this one, I can easily like select it manually by pressing Shift, Control Shift, and I get something like that. Okay, so this is the portion that we haven't done. And again, I'm going to apply the cylindrical mapping. And because of this shape is standing vertically, right, I don't have to rotate anything, and I get like pretty much complete UV shell for it. Okay, so again, at this stage, we kind of unwrap everything, right? But if you look at the textile density, right, it's kind of wrong. Some of them is quite big, some of them is quite small, right? And when you have this issue, you know what to do, right? So you have to go to the transform, right? So under tool, you can set it. Okay, now before you set the tool, remember you have to select one of them, put it in the correct size. It may be around this size, right? Make sure you set the resolution. I mean, for now we're going to be using 2048. Then you just press get, and you select all his friends. Maybe I'm going to use this shell selection better. Select him, 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 him. Alright, and then I'm going to set it. Okay, and now if you look at the checker pattern or the textile density, they're like pretty much the same scale. Okay, it's still a bit big, doesn't fit in the entire in this region, so I'm going to select again and just shrink it a bit more, just to make sure that everything kind of fitted nicely. Okay, perhaps something like this will do.